Before cities, before written history, before the world became familiar, giants still walked the earth. Mammoths crossed frozen plains. Rhinos with thick coats scraped snow from the ground. Sloths the size of elephants rose beneath ancient trees. Armored beasts moved like living tanks. And in dark caves, giant bears slept through brutal winters. These were not dinosaurs. They lived much closer to us. Some were seen by early humans. Some were painted on cave walls. And then, as the Ice Age ended, most of them vanished. These are the lost giants of the Ice Age. We start off with woolly mammoth. Of all the Ice Age giants, none is more famous than the woolly mammoth. It looked like an elephant built for winter, covered in thick fur, protected by layers of fat, with small ears to reduce heat loss, and long curved tusks that could sweep through snow or intimidate rivals. Woolly mammoths lived across the cold Mammoth Steppe, a vast grassland stretching through parts of Europe, Asia, and North America. They moved in herds, feeding on grasses, sedges, and low plants. But the mammoth was more than a large animal. It helped shape its world. As herds moved, they trampled snow, spread nutrients, opened ground, and kept grasslands alive. To early humans, mammoths were both dangerous and valuable. Their meat could feed groups. Their bones could become shelters. Their tusks became tools, carvings, and art. Some of the last mammoths survived on remote islands long after most mainland populations had disappeared. The woolly mammoth became the symbol of the Ice Age because it feels close to us, not a creature from impossible deep time, but a giant that almost made it into the modern world. Next in line is the American mastodon. The American mastodon is often mistaken for a mammoth, but it lived a very different life. Mammoths were mostly grazers of open plains. Mastodons were browsers, feeding on leaves, twigs, shrubs, and branches in forests and wetlands. They were stockier than mammoths, with heavier bodies, straighter tusks, and teeth shaped for crushing vegetation, rather than grinding grass. Picture one moving through a dark Ice Age forest, mist rising from wet ground, branches snapping under its weight, tusks pushing through the trees. The mastodon belonged to a woodland world. It was not simply a smaller mammoth. It was a different kind of elephant relative, adapted to forests, swamps, and dense vegetation. Like many Ice Age giants, it disappeared near the end of the Pleistocene, as climate changed and humans spread across North America. Its bones remain as evidence that ancient forests once held animals as impressive as any mammoth on the open plains. We follow up with the woolly rhinoceros. The woolly rhinoceros looked like a creature carved out of winter. It had a thick coat of fur, a heavy body, short, powerful legs, and 2 horns on its snout. Its front horn could grow long and blade-like, possibly helping it clear snow to reach buried grasses. It lived across the cold grasslands of Europe and Asia, sharing the landscape with mammoths, horses, bison, cave lions, and early humans. Unlike many extinct animals, the woolly rhino is known for more than bones. Some remains have been preserved in frozen ground, and ancient humans painted rhinoceros-like animals on cave walls. That makes it hauntingly real. This was not just a fossil species discovered by scientists. It was an animal seen by human eyes. The woolly rhino was strong, well-adapted, and built for extreme cold. But when the Ice Age world began to change, the open habitats it depended on began to shrink. Even a giant built for winter could not survive the loss of its world. Let's talk about Elasmotherium. Elasmotherium is sometimes called the Siberian unicorn, but it was not magical. It was stranger than that. This extinct rhinoceros was massive, long-legged, and built for open grasslands. Its skull suggests it may have carried an enormous horn, though the horn itself rarely fossilizes because rhino horns are made of keratin, not bone. That missing horn has made Elasmotherium one of the most mysterious Ice Age giants. Some reconstructions show it with a huge single horn rising from its forehead. Others are more cautious. But either way, this was an extraordinary animal, a rhinoceros pushed into almost mythological proportions. It likely grazed across parts of Eurasia during the Pleistocene, and survived later than scientists once believed. Its extinction may have been tied to changing grasslands, climate stress, and the shrinking of the open environments it needed. Elasmotherium reminds us that reality does not need fantasy to be unbelievable. Sometimes the fossil record is strange enough. Next up for discussion is Megatherium. Megatherium means great beast, and few names fit better. This was a giant ground sloth. Not a small animal hanging from trees, but a massive herbivore that could stand on its hind legs and rise to the height of an elephant. Its body was huge, its tail was thick, Its claws were long and powerful, but Megatherium was not a predator. It likely fed on leaves, branches, and vegetation. Its claws helped it pull down plants, dig, defend itself, and survive. When it stood upright, using its tail as support, it must have looked like a living tower. Early discoveries of Megatherium shocked scientists and helped change the way people understood extinction. It proved that enormous animals, unlike anything alive today, had once existed and had vanished. A giant sloth may sound almost funny today, but in the Ice Age world, Megatherium would have been one of the most impressive animals on the landscape. Slow, powerful, strange, and almost untouchable as an adult. A very interesting specimen is the glyptodon. Glyptodon looked like an armadillo turned into a tank. It was a large armored mammal related to modern armadillos, with a rounded shell made of bony plates. Its body was low, heavy, and protected like a living fortress. It was not fast. It did not need to be. Its armor was its defense. Glyptodon likely grazed on grasses and low vegetation across parts of South America, and later some relatives moved into North America after the continents became connected. To a predator, attacking an adult glyptodon would have been difficult. Its shell protected most of its body, making it one of the most heavily defended herbivores of the Ice Age. What makes glyptodon so fascinating is how familiar and impossible it feels at the same time. An armadillo is familiar. An armadillo the size of a small car is not. Glyptodon shows how the Ice Age could take ordinary animal forms and enlarge them into something almost unreal. Let's talk about family and friends like the Doedicurus. Doedicurus was a relative of glyptodon, but even more dramatic. It had a heavily armored body, protected by a large shell, but its most striking feature was its tail. At the end was a club-like structure, sometimes compared to a mace. Doedicurus was a herbivore, but that does not mean it was harmless. Modern rhinos, hippos, and bison are herbivores too, and all of them can be extremely dangerous. Doedicurus likely belonged to that same category. A plant eater built to make predators regret coming too close. Its shell protected it from attack. Its tail may have allowed it to fight back. This animal was not designed for speed. It was designed for survival through defense. A predator facing Doedicurus would not just be attacking prey, it would be attacking armor, weight, and a weaponized tail. In a world full of saber-toothed cats, giant bears, and powerful hunters, Doedicurus was proof that sometimes the best defense is becoming nearly impossible to kill. We continue the discussion with Megaloceros. Megaloceros is often called the Irish elk, but it was actually a giant deer. Its most famous feature was its enormous antlers. The largest males carried antlers that spread several meters across, forming one of the most dramatic displays in natural history. For a long time, people assumed these antlers were too large and may have helped cause the animal's extinction. But the real story is more complex. The antlers were likely used for display, competition, and attracting mates. They were signs of strength, health, and dominance. Imagine one standing in a cold valley at dawn, antlers stretching like dead branches against the sky. Megaloceros was not terrifying because it hunted. It was powerful because of its size, presence, and visual scale. It lived across parts of Europe and Asia, but as climates shifted and habitats changed, the giant deer eventually disappeared. Its skeleton remains one of the most haunting and beautiful images of the Ice Age. Not every giant was monstrous. Some were majestic. And from another continent, we have the Diprotodon. Australia's Ice Age giants were different from those on other continents, and the largest of them was Diprotodon. Diprotodon was the biggest marsupial ever known. It was related to wombats, but it was far larger, closer in size to a rhinoceros than to any wombat alive today. It had a massive body, strong limbs, and a large skull. It likely fed on shrubs, grasses, and other vegetation across ancient Australian landscapes. Australia's megafauna evolved in isolation, creating a world unlike anywhere else. Giant kangaroos, huge flightless birds, massive reptiles, and enormous marsupials. Diprotodon may have lived alongside early Aboriginal Australians for a time, making its story especially powerful. This was not an animal from the age of dinosaurs. It belonged to a more recent world, a world humans entered. Its extinction remains debated, with climate change, habitat shifts, and human impact all playing possible roles. When Diprotodon disappeared, Australia lost one of its strangest and most impressive giants. Talking about the bear family, we now have the cave bear. The cave bear was one of the great mammals of Ice Age Europe. It was larger than most modern brown bears, with a heavy body, powerful limbs, and a skull adapted mostly for plant-based feeding. though scientists continue to study its exact diet. Its name comes from where many of its bones are found: caves. Cave bears used caves for hibernation. Over thousands of years, their remains accumulated in huge numbers, creating fossil sites that feel like ancient graveyards. To early humans, cave bears may have been both danger and competition. Humans used caves. Bears used caves. In Ice Age Europe, shelter could mean survival. A cave was not just a place to sleep. It was protection from cold, predators, and weather. But if a cave already belonged to a giant bear, entering it could become deadly. Cave bears were not monsters. They were animals trying to survive the same harsh world humans were entering. Their extinction may have involved climate change, habitat loss, and competition with humans for space. A giant bear sleeping in the darkness of an Ice Age cave is one of the most atmospheric images of the Pleistocene world. The Ice Age did not end in one sudden moment. It faded, temperatures shifted, habitats changed, humans spread into new lands, and the giants that once ruled plains, forests, caves, and wetlands began to disappear. Mammoths vanished from the frozen grasslands. Giant sloths stopped rising beneath ancient trees. Armored beasts no longer moved like tanks through open country. Cave bears stopped sleeping in the dark. The world became smaller, quieter, more familiar. But beneath our feet, their bones still remain. The past is far stranger than we think, and this is only one chapter. Subscribe to hear more of the mysteries of the past.